You have a team member who's been missing deadlines, checking out in meetings, or doing work that's just not good enough. And you know you need to say something. But every time you get close to having the conversation, you find a reason to wait. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe they'll figure it out on their own. Maybe it'll blow over. So you say and do nothing. And it keeps getting worse. If this situation sounds familiar, then this video is for you. Because staying silent is not an option if you want to succeed as a leader. Hi, I'm Jen Arnold, and I help new leaders navigate their first people management role. Having hard conversations, especially when it comes to giving constructive feedback, is the number one skill gap I see in new leaders. And I get it. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to damage the relationship. You don't want to come across as too harsh. You're afraid they may cry. Maybe you just got promoted to lead your peers, and now you've got to give them constructive feedback. But here's what I need you to hear. Avoiding feedback doesn't protect the relationship. It erodes it. Silently, slowly, until the problem is so big that the conversation you've been putting off becomes 10 times harder than it had to be. So today we're going to walk through the 7 mistakes new managers make when giving feedback, what each one looks like, what it's costing you, and what to do instead. Let's dive in. The first mistake, and honestly the most common, is saying nothing or staying silent altogether. If you see a behavior that you know needs to be addressed and you don't, here's what it costs you. First, it costs that employee. They can't fix something they don't know is broken. Staying quiet is not protecting them. It's actually just protecting yourself, and it's setting them up to fail. Second, it costs your team. When the rest of your team is seeing someone get away with bad behavior or subpar work, and you're not saying anything, they're watching, they're taking note, and their trust in you as their leader is eroding. Third, it costs you. Every day you stay silent, that behavior just happens more and more, and your credibility and your reputation takes a hit. Silence isn't kindness, it's avoidance. And I promise you this, an awkward conversation is better than no conversation at all. Mistake number 2, offering up feedback in the form of a compliment sandwich. All right, here's the compliment sandwich. You start with the top layer. It's nice and something positive. The meat of the conversation is the constructive feedback, that negative feedback. And then the bottom layer of the sandwich is more positive. Here's what it looks like. Hey, Jen, you're doing great work overall, but I've noticed you've been missing some deadlines. But I love your attitude. It's always so positive. What? It feels like a nice thing to say, but it's not positive. And here's why. It just creates confusion. If you're starting with something positive, that's where our brain goes. Yes, I'm doing really well. And then comes the but, the negative. Then your brain is just discounting everything you just said with the positive piece of feedback. And then it's going, okay, well, there's this negative. And then you're ending with something positive. And then they just walk away confused. What just happened? Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? You wanted to soften the blow, but what you actually did was muddy the message. And now the fix isn't to be harsh, but it is to be clear. Clear is kind. You can be kind and direct. If you are worried about it coming off too harsh, here is a phrase that you can use. Hey, Jen, because you're such a valuable member of this team, I want to share this with you. Then lead with the issue. Be specific. Explain the impact. But the feedback itself, that core message, has to land cleanly and clearly. I'll share with you my feedback framework in a future video to give you an exact script. By the way, mistakes 3 and 4, these are the ones that really frustrate and piss off your employees. And in my experience, are the ones that kill manager credibility the fastest. So stay with me. Mistake number 3 is giving feedback without any specific observable evidence, aka facts. Here's what it sounds like. Your communication could be better. I feel like you're not really engaged. I've heard some concerns about your attitude. You need to build your confidence. That's not feedback. That's a half-hearted thought. And even worse, your employee can do nothing with this feedback. Effective feedback has to be anchored to something real. What did they actually do or say? When did it happen? How many times? And what was the impact? Before you even walk into the room, I want you to get specific. The more concrete you are, the more effective you'll be. And plus, if you have one of those employees who loves to deflect and not take any kind of blame, you've got facts there. Stick to the facts. Because when the conversation is grounded in facts, it's about the behavior, not the person. And that's what feedback should be about. Mistake number 4, no discussion. It's just a one-way conversation. You prepped your feedback, you walked in, you delivered it, you wait for them to nod and agree, and then you leave. Feedback is not a monologue. When you present your case and just wait for them to accept it, you're going to get, at best case, compliance. You're definitely not going to get commitment. They may say, sure boss, got it, but nothing changes. Maybe it's because they didn't fully understand, or they shut down because they felt blindsided and they never even got to respond. The best feedback conversations are two-way. It's a discussion. So after you share what you've been noticing or what you've been observing, after you share the facts, the impact it had, ask them, hey, what's your take on this? What's going on from your perspective? Or my personal favorite, what did you hear me say? Sometimes you learn something that shifts how you see the situation. Sometimes you don't. But at least they feel heard. Either way, it's the dialogue and it's the conversation that creates buy-in. And buy-in is what creates change. All right, if this is landing for you, hit subscribe. I make videos like this every week for new managers who got thrown into leadership with zero training. And if you want to see exactly where you stand across all 5 areas of my new leader guide framework, there is a free assessment linked in the description and on the screen. All right, back to it. Mistake number 5. The conversation went well, and then nothing. Crickets. There's no clear steps. There's no follow-up plan. There's no extra meeting. This is the most common way feedback conversations die. Your employee leaves like, maybe I need to do something, but I'm not really sure, so I'll just go about my business. But you leave feeling like you handled it. 2 weeks later, the same behavior shows up again, and now you're even more frustrated. Every feedback conversation needs to end with an agreement. What specifically are you asking for them to change? By when? When are you both checking back in with each other? Without next steps, feedback is just a one-time event. But when you have next steps and concrete actions that the person needs to take and how you're going to support them, it becomes a development conversation. And that's the difference between managing behavior and actually growing and developing somebody. Mistake number 6, giving feedback when your emotions are running hot. Something happens, you're frustrated, and you address it right then, right there. Maybe you thought you were being responsive. Maybe you didn't want to let it slide. But here's the problem. When you're emotional, your feedback is about your feelings and your timeline, not the behavior, not the impact, definitely not the other person. Your frustration is what comes through, even when you think it doesn't. And when your employee receives emotionally loaded feedback, they go into a threat response. I mean, who wouldn't? They're going to get defensive. They're going to shut down. And the message that you're sending them gets completely lost. Take time, get your emotions to level out before you address it. Feel your feelings somewhere else first, then come back when you can be direct without being reactive. I have a video you can check out about controlling your emotions so they don't get the best of you. Mistake number 7, giving constructive feedback publicly. I know this seems obvious, and yet new managers and experienced managers do it. Unintentionally, of course. Maybe it's a side comment in a team meeting, a correction in front of a client, a reaction in a group chat. Praise in public, correct in private. When you give critical feedback in front of other people, you're not going to get a productive conversation. You get humiliation. And a person who's been publicly humiliated doesn't respond with, oh, boss, tell me more. How can I improve? They respond with defensiveness, resentment, and sometimes a visit to HR. So there you go. 7 mistakes new managers make when giving feedback. None of these require bad intentions. They all come from putting yourself in a new and uncomfortable situation to help your team member grow. And guess what? It does get easier each time you do it. And in the end, you're going to grow and develop as well. Expecting and preparing for hard conversations is the E in my guide framework. You can see how you're doing with hard conversations and across the guide framework by taking my free 2-minute assessment. Link is in the description and on the screen. If this video helped you, share it with a new manager you know. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Which one of these feedback mistakes have you either made or have you been on the receiving end of? Love to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.